Our speaker this morning will be Mr. Al Holdren. I'd like for us to do our own personal introductions. And if you would, please state your name, where you are calling from, and give me about 1 minute or so of your business. And at the end of it, please remind us of what a good lead for you would be. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to call you by your name, the way I see you on my screen. And the first person up will be Gerald Cowan, if you would, please.
Good morning, lawyer for more than 30 or 40 years. I can't remember how long it's been. I do wills, trusts, powers of attorney, living wills, one with healthcare representatives, guardianships, settle estates. When people get promoted, does everybody know what it means to get promoted? When someone passes away suddenly, it's a shock to the family, obviously. And they have bank accounts, stock certificates, pieces of real estate. They've got a will. Sometimes they don't have a will. They need help. And I try to be compassionate. I try to be there for them, give them the comfort they're looking for and the assurance that things will be handled in an orderly manner. You should know that if your net worth is a multi-million-dollar level, Bernie Sanders is after you to get your money. He has a goal to cut the $11.7 million per person exemption down to $3.5 million. We don't know what he's going to do about portability, which allows 3.5 to be doubled, once for the husband, once for the wife. He'll probably try to knock that out too. So if you know anybody who's in that net worth category, they really need to take advantage of that $11 million exemption if they haven't already used it and they can afford to do it. So a good referral to me would be someone who lost a loved one and has an estate to be settled, or someone who has a loved one who has lost their capacity to carry on with their business affairs and need a court-appointed guardian to help with their finances. And I'm from Indianapolis, near Indianapolis. Gerald L. Cowan, lawyer.
Thank you, Jerry. Hey, just as a reminder, if you're not speaking, can you mute? Nick Sullivan, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Nick Sullivan from Sullivan Business Solutions here in Raleigh, North Carolina, but can work across the nation. Obviously, business owners look for cash flow and profitability. I help with that by capturing specialized tax incentives that most business owners overlook, especially in the small to medium-sized companies if they own commercial property or hire employees, or for example, retaining employees. Companies that have been hit by the pandemic might be eligible for benefits that are up to $33,000 per employee. So even a small business with a handful of employees can benefit from this. This can be on top of PPP. I can also help them if they have commercial property. In addition to that, I can help their employees and the business owner by having access to attorneys and law firms and identity theft protection through Legal Shield. A good referral are CPAs. They're actually good partners. Good businesses, Main Street business. And the businesses that you walk into could be a good business to be benefited by both sides of my business. Again, it's Nick Sullivan, Sullivan Business Solutions, protecting businesses and their bottom lines.
Thank you, Nick. Rhoda Israelov, please.
Good morning, all from Indianapolis, and I'm so happy that this worked out to have Al with us. And Al and I met at the Business Spotlight, and I thought, wow, none of us probably are going to be his victims. We need to know more about it, about debt collection. My team and I write what you read when you go on our clients' websites, demonstrating that they have value to add, they're in the now, and they're in the know. The best client would actually be someone who has a website where the newest entry is 6 months old or older. That means they understood they need a blog, they need content, but they simply couldn't keep up with it themselves. So they need some help. So we say it for you.
Thank you, Rhoda. David Garrison, please.
Good morning. I'm Dave Garrison from Martinsville, Indiana. I work with wealth advisors, real estate agents, and their senior clients in utilizing their housing wealth to achieve their retirement goals. And that may be things like purchasing a new home with a reverse mortgage where the down payment is something like 50% of the home and never having to make a further payment, or using their housing wealth in a manner of a refinance where they're creating a line of credit to use for future healthcare expenses or to mitigate what we fancy word call sequence of returns risk, which simply means stock market negative returns. Use the line of credit to draw from instead of the portfolio. A variety of reasons for cash flow improvement in retirement. So Dave Garrison, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage.
Thank you. John Vandersall.
Good morning. John Vandersall from Indianapolis. Forgive my late sign on. I was running around the house looking for my hat to keep my uniform up to Keith standards. No, in all seriousness, there was a small power outage here in Broad Ripple, so I was waiting for the power to come back on so I could get my Wi-Fi together. I am residential real estate. I work for F.C. Tucker Company. I office out of the Keystone and the Crossing branch. I live in Broad Ripple. I service Marion County and surrounding areas. I work equally with buyers and sellers. And yeah, inventory is historically low. I just received an article about people panic buying homes because prices are rising up. The average home price in Indianapolis area last month is $280,000. A really good lead for me is someone who's thinking about and wondering about selling and curious what the value of their property is. I'd be happy to have that conversation. So for all your real estate needs, talk to Tucker and call Vandersall.
No problem at all. Wow, you're right about that real estate market. I don't understand how newbies get into it. Man, that's a tough call there, John. I don't. How do people, first-time buyers, how to make that cut?
They're not right now. They're not.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You've got. I'll give you one. Or there's this. I have one client who's going to buy a house and finance it from the bank of mom and dad. So they're going to be a cash buy, and then they'll figure out financing or buy it from mom and dad later. But that's.
Wow. That's a whole conversation in and of itself. Is, if we don't get first-time buyers, then we don't get guys buying couches and appliances. And, it's that whole supply chain for consumers, because old guys like me, I don't want to buy nothing. If it works, I'm going to keep it. I'm not that candidate. And, in our consumer society, these are tough things to think about, this whole process. So anyone have any other personal announcement, any business related announcements or business success? Rhoda, please.
Yesterday, I did an hour-long presentation for a mastermind group out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it was absolutely the first time that I'd ever given a real long presentation to people that I had not met before, some of whom at least I had not met before. And taking care of the technology and the two screens, it was an accomplishment. I'm glad that I got it done and it works. So
yeah, we'll have a speaker in the coming months that's going to talk exclusively about doing these presentations over Zoom. All of us are making some adjustments. So, sharpening up our skills, making sure our technology's right, certain suggestions for lighting, sound, etc. We just need to be on top of that. So I think that's important now. I think it's really, really important. So, and then the presentation, that always helps, knowing how to do the right presentation. What I'd like to do is reintroduce our speaker again, Mr. Al Holdren. Al, this will be your next 30 minutes. We want you to get us smarter. So with that, Al, if you would please go ahead. You're in charge. It's the Al Holdren Hour.
Boy, you may be out of luck with that. You're asking a lot there.
Hey, you can cut it.
John, I'll tell you, it's very interesting. You make that comment. Several. We've sold a couple houses. Mother-in-law and oldest daughter just got married, They moved into his house with it. So we've been on the good side of that, on the good side of the rape and pillage side, because that's it really you're just deciding at what over list you're going to pay, and which of the 10 offers you're going to take, on that. So thank goodness we weren't on the buying side of that. But there's only 97 houses in all of I'm in Muncie, Indiana, and I should start with that. Al Holdren, I am with Atlas Collections. We're a debt collection company based out of Muncie, Yorktown, Indiana. And all within Delaware County, there's 97 houses total for sale. There's more real estate agents in Delaware County than 97. So if they sold them all this month, everybody gets one. And you've got some of these guys are selling 20. So, it's crazy in that market. I don't know what to even tell you, but John's dead nuts on with really what's going on. And that affects everything. I think you were so right. They're not buying refrigerators, they're not buying couches, those kind of things. So where does that go? And, where's the collection, the market? What do I tell you to do? I always typically ask, and I will really for Gerald's comments, whatever, nothing I tell you is legal advice. Everything that I tell you is something that an attorney has told me. Okay. And we've had to pay money for every one of these opinions. So, over the 28 years that I've been in the collection business, either as a sales director for the company that I bought with a partner group, our company's been around since 1967. It was started by two gentlemen. One has passed. Myself and my partner, who is the operations manager, we're a small company. We're 10 people. I handle everything outside the office. She handles everything inside the office. That's who we are. We have a stable of collectors. I've always worked at an all-female company. I'm the only dude. Always been the only dude. Probably will always be the guy. Ladies are better, not to be genders. Ladies are better at this business than guys are, in general. They just are. There's a higher compassion level. The smaller the community, the more the ladies are involved. You find agencies in Indianapolis and Chicago and all that, there'll be a lot more guys involved. But most companies, usually the salesperson's a guy. And in the smaller companies, the salesperson, the ownership is male, and then all the other staff is female. I don't know specifically why that is. It just is, and it's true. It's true at our company. We work in a few silos of business: medical, dental, veterinary, property management. We also work within the trades and then the utilities. We were really founded. The gentleman that was one of the owners was a gentleman named Dub, D-U-B Fike. Dub was vice president of Indiana Bell. He retired, bought interest in the company. We were very heavily, when utilities were still local based and still had local offices. Then it was Indiana Gas, Indiana American Water still around. Before Vectren was AEP, and then you had Indiana Bell, and there were no cell phones. So you didn't have all the cell phone companies that are out there. Our company at one time regionally worked for all of those companies. So we had a large utility base, and then also worked for Ball Memorial Hospital. Well, over 28 years, as you talked with COVID, things change. IU Health, Community, and St. Vincent's Ascension, now they played Hungry Hippos with hospitals and physician offices over the last 10 years, and you grabbed and they bought everything they possibly could. Okay. that was for sale. So that market changed. Ball Memorial gets bought. We have 3 hospitals we worked for, Jay County, Ball Memorial, and Blackford County. All were purchased by UHealth, and then they subsequently fire every vendor they have that's local. So all the vendors have to be based out of Indianapolis or having been working with the parent company with that. That just happened. Then community comes in, buys as much as they can that IU didn't buy, and then Ascension comes in and buys anyone that they couldn't make a deal with, the community couldn't make a deal with. So the medical community and the business, that goes away. So we've all of a sudden become a regional company, a much bigger. I solicit the state of Indiana, and and it's funny, through the pandemic, everybody was making the comment that, not out, and nobody's going to be out of the office. Face-to-face meetings aren't going to happen. Well, that was not true in my world. I think a lot of that happened because people were scared, and I think there's some rightfully so with that. Wherever you fall with that, I don't fall on either side. Really, just don't care. I did what I had to do, and I still run twice a week. Still run 20 to 25 face-to-face cold calls every week all through the pandemic. We were out for 2 weeks. We sent the gals home for 2 weeks till we figured out what's going to happen with everything. They were home. They worked from home, collected from home. I was in the office every day. And then that 3rd week, I was back out. The interesting thing was, and I'm calling on dental, medical, veterinary offices, and then municipalities with that. Now, the municipalities, they shut the world down. They just locked the doors. The other ones, all they did was have you in your car have to call for your appointment to appoint. So because of that, there was nobody in those offices. I've had more success in the last year than I had in the previous 27 years. Now, you had to strap on the big boy pants and decide you're going to go out and be involved in that and go toe to toe with. There's no one in their offices, and the offices managers were bored to death. They couldn't leave the office, and they all wanted a Diet Coke. And I made more hay with Diet Cokes from Casey's. I bet I spent $1,000 in 9 months buying Pepsis and Cokes for any of those gals because they couldn't leave. They didn't want them to leave, come back. They bring their lunch. Once they're in and wash their hands, they wanted them in. I'm like, I'll be right back. Hang on, walk across the street, bring them a Diet Coke. I bought more goodwill and I bought more clients with Diet Cokes and candy bars than you've ever imagined in your lifetime. Their comment was, they said, you're the only vendor we've seen in months. Everybody else, they put them at home. They stayed at home. That's the advantage of a small company. I make the calls. It's my company. I do what I want. If people don't like, and I did walk in a few offices, they were very uncomfortable with it. I leave a brochure and I'm out. Always had a mask on. It's interesting right now with what's going on, out there in the world, because the closer you get to Michigan, the more the Axis powers align. The more that you get into a rural America, I got yelled at for walking in a heating and air conditioning company in North Vernon, Indiana, and the old guy yelled at me because I had a mask on. Quote unquote, what the hell you going to do? Rob this place? Okay. That's where they stand. It's just, and it's like that pretty much when you get out into the rural area, it has changed. You wouldn't think there's much going on. You get closer up to Michigan, then it's Goshen's still on full lockdown. It just is. So you abide by that and go that way. Where are collections at? I mean, here's the reality. The reality is that there's several things that you should be aware of and you should tell your clients, and I think you ought to know. The reality is, what's the order of events when something goes to collections? I've kind of told you the silos of business. The reality is, anything that's a good client for a collection agency is anybody that still gives terms. We're a general practitioner. Many practices or groups, they've specialized. They just do veterinary work. They just do dental work. We have not done that for the sake of survival. Thank God we never did that. When the medical community went away, that was a big play for us. If that had went away and we hadn't had the utility, property management is a big play for us. And the property managers are usually very poor at collecting in general. They don't do it all the time. They wear many hats. They're sometimes they're fixing doorknobs. They're, plumbing toilets, and, they're dealing with fist fights with people and all that. And then collections gets pushed off the end, and it just is what it is. And there's a gazillion stories that you hear with all that. But the process is that we have to send a letter. We have to send a validation notice. And that validation notice, we have to then wait 30 days for the account to be validated. If they no response, the account is validated. If they don't dispute it, the account is validated. And then after 30 days, once it's in our system in that letter, if that's from receipt of our letter, then at that point, we can start making phone calls. We can only call at certain times, and it's really, it's 8 to 5, whatever 8 to 5 is, wherever you're at in whatever time zone. Our software dictates that and would limit a call out to California before we don't call California before noon. Okay, not that we're making oodles of calls there. We're licensed currently, as with council has to be licensed. Not every state requires a license. Indiana, Ohio do, and those are the two states that I can solicit business in. Mine is licensed to be able to solicit, not to collect in. I can call you wherever you live. If you lived in Indiana and you moved to California, I don't have to be licensed in California to make a phone call there. Okay. But I have to have a license in California if I want to solicit you as a real estate agent to do property management work. Okay. That's kind of the rules of engagement. After that, phone calls, they could last. We're setting up payment arrangements. We've had people on payment arrangements for 12 years. We had one guy, him and his wife made over $100,000 a year at Chevrolet when it was open in Muncie. Both of them, this was 20 years ago, made over $100,000, and they owed us most of the time over $35,000. That was for 18 years. They used us as a payment window. We dominated and had so much of the community at that time. We did collection work. So wherever they bought from, all their medical bills, they just let them all come to us. They're all under one roof. They come in and make one payment. He paid, oh my gosh, I don't know, $600 to $800 every Friday after cashing the check. $600 to $800 every Friday for 15 years. We call those valued customers. I wish I had 5,000 of those guys. Oh my gosh. Licensed to print money, never missed a payment, always came in. He would bring the receptionist flowers on her birthday. Dude, you don't want to know your collection guy that well. But he came in and was so kind. They were so nice. Both of them finally passed. We hated it. I mean, I think our gross income went down 1% when they died. Not good. We wanted as many of those guys we could find. So, sometimes you just never know what people are going to do and how they're going to do that. After that, those phone calls could last for whatever period of time. Could be one day, could be a year, could be 10 years. Then after that, if they, here's the reality is, we're only collecting about somewhere between 22 and 35% of everything that comes in the door. Anybody that has higher expectations than that is unrealistic for the industry. It's just not that way. We have exceptions to that on both sides. I have some that send us 20 accounts. We never collect a thing. The information's so bad, the accounts are so old, nothing ever happens. We have others that send us accounts that are marginal. We collect 80% of them. You never know. You just take them blind. It depends on the debtor base, where are they from, what's the average income. The reality is Eaton, Indiana and Carmel, Indiana are different places. Okay. You've got one that is, I grew up there, unfortunately, meth capital of Indiana. Okay. You got this, it's a poor community. And then you have Carmel, Noblesville, frankly, you have those donut cities that are growing and so fast, and average income and house average house is $280,000. I will guarantee you the average house price in Eaton is not $280,000. It just isn't. It's not the way. So a lot depends. What's that demographic base? What is it? Dental bills are great. That's an elective. That's something that's elective to go to the dentist. And it may be, there'll be higher recovery rates than a medical bill. You get sick, you're going to go get well. What it costs, you worry about after the fact. Dental is something that's elective. Eye is something that is somewhat elective, even though it's if you wear glasses and have poor eyesight, you would think it's mandatory, but it's really not. The medical is the only thing that they really look at when they start looking and prioritizing bills. Here's the reality. When you're talking with someone, if they have a question, speed kills or speed saves it really in our business. People used to settle in bills, and they still do, and they bring stuff to us once a year. It's too long. The reality is your debtor base out there, a collection agency or a business, you're in competition for people's money. They have X amount of dollars. They have bills more than they have money. Ye who yells the most often and also yells the loudest gets paid. If you get down in line where you set on accounts and you're fifth or sixth in line, our accounts are paid first list, first paid. Because I have many times, we have a debtor that has 40 accounts with us. How do I make everybody priority? And I get people ask me when they want to take us on they said, now all my accounts are going to be first on your list to get paid. I said, your accounts will be in the order that you list them. The quicker you list them, the quicker you'll get paid. It's the only way you can be fair to everybody. Okay. So you tell everybody speed's going to win in this business. You can say, and it used to be 90 days was customary. That has been backed up to 60 days. If you're holding stuff and setting on stuff, trying to do it for more than 60 days, and you don't get paid, more than likely you probably won't within certain customer bases. That's not always true within the commercial side. The commercial business is different. There's two sides to our business. The commercial side, we deal with what they call the FDCPA, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. It's a 1-inch manual that tells me what I can and cannot do, period. We have to abide by it. It is our Bible. In the commercial world, that doesn't exist. And that's a B2B business. Now, we still abide by it just so that we don't get countersued, okay? We really treat them all the same, but we don't have to. You can take the gloves off, and there's a big difference between a first-party collector and a third-party collector. We're a third-party collector. So we're collecting someone else's debt. If your business or yourself, you're collecting, you're a first-party collector. The rules are pretty loose what you can do as a first-party collector. You can do about whatever you want. Does that mean you can't get sued for it? No, not necessarily. I mean, that's why there's lots of attorneys out there, and they hunt us. We have 3 attorneys, 1 local, 1 in Anderson, 1 in Indianapolis, that hunt us every day. They review every one of our court cases, and they're looking for fair debt violations that they can actually countersue us. They don't even countersue us. They just send a letter, say, send me $3,000 and I won't sue you. Okay. That's a very interesting tactic, but they're predatory attorneys. They're turds too. They're kind of turds. It's okay. We once in a while will just, what we do is we'll bait them into court, and we'll bait them, and we'll make them go through the whole procedure, especially when we know they have a loser. We'll bait them into court just to pound them and then embarrass them in front of a judge, and then let the judge insult them, which they will. They'll tell them to quit doing this, and then they'll back off for a couple of years. So once in a while, you got to spend a couple $1,000 just to slap yappy dogs on the end of the nose. And you got to do that, because if not, they hunt you all the time, and they're out soliciting clients. They'll say, hey, we think you got an FDCPA case here, you want to be part of a class action, and they'll go that way. Now, how ethical is that and all that? I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't know. We don't deal with that. too much. That's just what they do for a living, and they do it all over the place. And they won. One gentleman won a case against St. Vincent's, and I'm going to talk about that next, for a fee addition case, and he won a $13 million settlement. St. Vincent's in one day had to write off $13 million worth of accounts because they were wrong. They screwed it up. They got bad advice. They screwed it up. They wrote off all those. And then they had to turn around and write to every person that had an account with them that fell within that time period, had to write them $1,000 check. Cost them a fortune. So they call it charity care. They wrote it off and they moved down the road. There's one thing out there, and it varies state by state. It's allowable in the state of Indiana, and it's called fee addition. You can add collection agency fees on top of a bill that's owed. We do it but it has to be agreed upon in advance of the debt being created. We've done it for years. We do it for medical practices all over the place. I've got medical practices that have never paid me a dime. It's section 8081 of the Fair Debt. And paraphrasing it just says that you can add a fee on top of the bill as long as they agree in writing to pay that. The local courts have set two rules. One, you have to say how much that's going to be, whether it's a percentage or a dollar amount, and also specifically what it is. It used to be that most counsel wrote, and we've seen this verbiage for years, includes all costs, including attorney fees. Many attorneys write specifically to exclude collection agencies from actually being able to do that, where they can add their attorney fees, but they can't add collection fees. We have one. That's going to includes everybody. It includes attorney fees, collection fees, court costs, any other fees. Because you never know who they're going to work with. The reality is that probably 70% of all the attorneys in the world still do collection work. It's not something they talk about. It's not something they put on there, but they have a client that they're doing contract work for. It's easier. They just want the attorney to go do it, send it to them. They know them, they trust them, they go do that. We work with various attorneys throughout the state. A lot of times they get quantity stuff. Most are not set up. Most do not have staff where they want to do a large quantity of work. Okay. They want to be able to write a letter and be able to write a letter and get paid for it. They sell time. They sell time and effort. And so that's how they are paid with that. If they go to court and it's an hour and their fees are $300 an hour, they want $300. Okay. And that's just so we don't fight really against them. We work with them, and we have to have them. We employ multiple attorneys that represent us in court that we have to have. We do all the preliminary work, build the folder, get it to them. They review it. They meet us in court. When we go to Indianapolis, sometimes we'll go to a court and we'll be there for 20 cases in a row. Just hammer them out. Boom, 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 boom. And we do that maybe once a quarter within various courts throughout Indiana, and our attorneys won't travel everywhere. Our guys here don't want to go to Evansville. Okay. I mean, God, you can't get there from here, so the reality is we just work with somebody else down there, and there's somebody else wanting to go do that. So you get a lot of different opinions, a lot of different advice. We always tell everybody, hey, before you put this disclaimer on, but they put it on something they sign. So the property management guys should put this in the leases. I am glad to provide the paragraphs that we have seen been successful for them to get reviewed by their counsel before they engage and put them on there. But we know they work. We know they work. I paid a lot of money. There's a gentleman, attorney out of Indianapolis. He's the #1 FDCPA attorney in the country. And he reviews anything we do. We send to him. We pay him a lot of money for that. He gives great opinions. We've never lost a case with that. And I'm glad to provide that to any of your clients free of charge. I've got a brochure that I'd be glad to send to them. You just send me an email and say, hey, I got a property management guy. I got this company, that company. We'll send it. Some states have laws precluding that from happening. If that's the case, you can't do it. You just can't do it. There's probably, I don't know, 3/4 of the states in the nation you can do that. There's nothing. Some say that you just can't add fees on top, and you just have to abide by that. At that point, we work on a contingency basis. The old school of thumb for collections, when attorneys were the primary collection arms within areas, was a third. They took a third, 33 1/3%. There's what they call an informal commentary letter with this fee addition that says anything over 33 1/3% is unconscionable. We add 30%. We tiptoe the line, we just don't jump over it. There used to be some used to add 100%. You had a $100 account, they had $100 collection fees. I think that's a little rough. And it's non-customary, and you should stay out of that. So that's big picture of what collections are. I mean, here's the thing. If you have any client that just wants a piece of non-legal advice about collections, I've been around the horn. We've seen it all. I've heard it all. I've been involved. I testify for many of our clients as a professional witness. They don't have to go to court. The only court that we've ever come across where I got spanked was down in Franklin. And I will never go back there again. Not doing that again. I only get insulted once. The second time, shame on me. And the judge would not allow anyone to testify in his court that was not an employee of the company. I told him up front what I was doing, what was going on. He let it happen in court, and we actually lost the case because our counsel had never been there. We did not know that local rule. He did not inform anybody of the local rule, even though I told him ahead what we were going to do. He saw the train coming. He let the crash happen. We lost the case. Wasn't anything we can do about it. Now we know if we do that, now what I do is if we have a case there, I call the company. I fill out an employment contract for $1. I'm going to be paid $1 for the day. They hire me for a day for $1. And I take that information with me. And then he does not like it at all. He doesn't like when we do that. But we're playing by the rules. We're just bending the heck out of them. And sometimes that's what you have to do if they're going to set local rules like that, because that's not customary in any other court. All I'm doing is just providing base information with that and letting them know that I don't have to have somebody drive 2 hours to come and testify on a case that's $400. It's not worth the money. You just take them out of it. So that's my background. That's what we do. I am absolutely open for any questions, and I will act as a consultant, like I said, to any of your clients. If you have anybody, you just have them call me. Just absolutely have them call me. And my cell number is 765-744-0369. Call me anytime. I'm glad to help. They don't have to become a client to do that. The information's free. Glad to share it. Glad to do anything that we can for them. I'm certainly open to any questions and anything personal, or please just fire away, guys.
David, please.
Yeah.
And then Rhoda.
I'm curious. So you don't actually classically buy the debt.
Correct.
So whatever you collect, you retain a third or 30%, and then you write a check back to the customer. Is that what you do?
That's correct. Okay. On a monthly, we remit back on a monthly basis.
Is that the most common way? That's the most common way folks do it then?
Yeah, there are debt buyers out there. It's funny. The debt buyers typically are not collection agencies. There are some collection agencies that do. Usually they're private equity companies. With certain debt, there's some money to be made, and there's systems for doing that and software for doing that. They get funded by somebody that's got some cash that wants to put out there. It's a little risky doing it, but there's debt out. There's a lot of debt out there to buy. You can go buy it for pennies on the dollar, and then they hire a collection agency, and then they split with the collection agency whatever they collect. So they buy it for a nickel on the dollar. If they can collect 15 cents on the dollar, the agency gets 5 cents. The debt buyer gets the other 10%, the other 10 cents, 5 to pay it back, and 5 for profit. So if you could double your money with that, then it's a legit business, and there's some out there done them real well. There's also some out there that have lost their shorts doing it too.
Rhoda?
You had mentioned that a letter has to go out before collection calls start.
Correct.
Remember, I told you that I started getting collection calls with no letter, no anything. They had the wrong address for me, and they had sent my bill twice, once to my insurance company and once to my son, thinking there could not possibly be two Israelovs in one universe.
Sure.
And so I started getting harassed by Harris and Harris. Literally, they called me 8-10 times a day, and they wouldn't tell me. And I thought it was a scam, and I wouldn't give them any information about me. And so therefore, they wouldn't tell me what was going on. So I finally, just by coincidence, found someone who knew me at the hospital, and they were able to finally get the thing straightened out. But it was such a miserable process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and typically the real rule of thumb is if you ever get pounded like that, you just dispute it in writing, send them a letter, right? Once you dispute it in writing, then you're at that point, they only have two options: cancel the account or litigate you. And the reality was, let them take you to court. Best thing you can do is get in front of a judge, and then the judge is going to tell them that they're crazy, or they'll investigate a little bit. Harris and Harris they're a monster company based out of Chicago that took on IU Health. That's who we lost IU Health to, and they have I think 3,000 collectors.
And this was IU Health, by the way, because that's where my surgery was. And it was such a bad process, but I could not respond in writing because I didn't know who I was responding to.
Yeah, they're a little coy, and when you're hiring 3,000, you got 3,000 collectors, your ability to monitor what they're doing is probably limited to some degree.
Yeah.
Please,
John?
A couple questions. I'll come with the first one first. What's the process when, and tell me if you don't even do this, but when a collections company reports bad debt to the credit bureau,
sure.
and then that debt is settled and cleared up, what's the process, and who's responsible for notifying credit companies?
The agency, and I'll use us for example, that we now no longer credit report. And most agencies, I would think within a year that there'll be no collection agencies reporting to the credit bureaus. And here's why. That's because of countersuits, and that's because of attorneys. Because the predatory attorneys that are out there, they are suing because somebody said, I couldn't buy a refrigerator because you credit reported me. Well, that was the whole intent of the credit reports, was to show a reflection of your credit history. Well, they said, well, that's fine, but still I couldn't buy the refrigerator. If you get a soft judge and lose that, it's $5,000. For me to fight a countersuit, $5,000. So with all that said, they're hammering it. They just seen it. It's become new business. And because here's what they'll say. It's $5,000, or if you want to send me a check for $1,000, we won't push it any further. We'll drop the case. So they just send out massive amounts of letters. And if you do enough of those and you get enough agencies that scare and send 1,000, and here's the thing, as soon as you send it in once, man, they're back every day until you slap them on the nose. So at some point you got a bucket. So with that, now when accounts are paid to us, we report monthly. We used to report monthly, and we still do on the existing accounts that we had there, but it is our job to mark that account paid. Okay. It is our job to report that back.
And so kind of curiosity, what's the time frame once you, the agency, notified credit bureaus the debt's settled? How long until that's sold?
Typically on a weekly basis. Now,
nice.
The time frame that they mark it on your credit report, they are so inundated, they're usually a month behind.
A month.
Yeah.
And then those points should or could come back to that individual pretty quick, their credit score?
Yes, if there's points to be gained,
Okay.
from that. But it's a lot of times what we get a lot of calls from is they want us to remove it from their credit. We will not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, unless the original creditor tells us to, and then we just put through an R code and it removes it. Most people out there right now, I think you're going to find that credit reporting in the next 5 years is going to be rendered useless because the information out there is not going to be correct at all. They want us to show that the debt never happened. Here's the thing, I don't care. I didn't create it. You created your own problem. I'm just reporting the accuracy. I just want to report accurate what happened. You made your payments or it's paid in full. To have it removed is not a fair reflection of your past history. You had bad debt. So the person that pulls the report goes, wow, this guy's clean. That wasn't true. He got 30 people to remove it.
That's interesting, intriguing. So if that becomes reality, what do you think, or how do you think banks would? What are banks going to go off of when, specifically in my industry, like a mortgage, right? If someone wants to get a $200,000 mortgage, they're looking at payment history.
They'll probably go away from that, and they're going to look. Here's the reality: the world's getting soft. We're getting soft, and it's getting worse. They're going to probably look based upon how long have you been employed, and how much do you make? They're going to shift it to what's coming in, not where you were, or they will make you provide references, and you will have to sign off that if they get adverse information and make a decision on that you won't sue them. I just think the verbiage is going to change, and it'll create some work, for their counsel to do that. So I think the contracts that you sign, my opinion, I think those are going to change. And then they're going to do it based upon here's the problem. People change jobs like shirts anymore. Mm-hmm. They're there, but then next week they're moving on to someplace else with that. So, but I think they're going to come more at risk with that. Or there'll be some new system, usually there's something else pops up, or the credit bureaus are going to find different ways to pull information that shield that. But they're seeing collection agencies are dropping off. We were one of the last bastions. Only the great big guys right now are still credit reporting. Here's the thing. I don't get any extra cookies for credit reporting. So we put ourselves at risk for no extra. It may have been a sales tactic because people want you to credit report because they want them punished for what they did to them. That happens once in a while, but honestly, I get asked that so seldom. We were stupid for continuing to credit report really for the last couple of years. It just wasn't a good financial call for us to do that and to fight. We were fighting the fight, not getting anything out of it.
Anyone else? I have
sure.
Business.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a nice business related question, which I think Keith will appreciate also. So Al, first of all, congratulations on having a stellar 2020 throughout the pandemic and walking in to all those cold calls that you did. That's good of you. As a person who enjoys a good coffee and a good lunch, it's this last 15 months has been hard and different for me. We stopped open houses, literally. Right. And then I would do 1 to 2 every Sunday. So that changed my Sunday schedule. Anyway, so my question is, so well done on getting all your accounts. I'd be intrigued from a dollar collection standpoint. How did you see collections over the 2020 COVID period?
No change.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Did you make money?
No, didn't. You really, even though they had more money, even though you got the checks and and they were getting unemployment and all that, you didn't see payments go up. We saw it was fairly flat. It was about the same. We didn't see much change in that. But I will tell you, I have several dear friends through a charity that my family, I started a group called Secret Families, provides Christmas for every family in Delaware County that doesn't have Christmas, school-age family 400 families every year, and there's seven groups of that now, 7 counties that do that. All started here in Muncie, but Meyer, Craig Hunter is a dear friend and been a general manager of the Meyer stores. Those stores have had banner years, and you can't almost buy a flat screen TV from any of them. And if you want to know where all the money went into flat screen TVs. I wouldn't have believed it. I was sitting outside of Walmart. Craig told me that story, and I went, "Oh, whatever. Craig," I'm like, "Oh," he goes, "Dude," he goes, "I'm begging for them." He said, "I'm stealing them from other stores that haven't seen that." I sat outside of a Walmart for an hour in the parking lot. Mama Bear had to go in, pick up some things. I didn't want to fight the crowd. I was just sitting there. I had a couple things to work on. And I'm sitting there, and this is right after the first checks hit. So in 1 hour, I think I counted 20, just in the one row that I'm in, 22 large screen TVs, 32 inches and above, in a cart coming out, getting into a car or a truck. Merry Christmas. He told me that they had 9 months, at least as big as December in the previous year, in a row. He said his retirement has changed substantially. Just his bonus was off the charts. They had never seen anything like it. His bonus, he said, would be as big last year as any previous year, any 6 Meyer general managers combined in the history of the company. He was just trying to decide what truck to buy. Then there was no trucks to buy. So there you go.
Great story. Hey, Al, we could have a ton of other questions, but it's getting close to the time.
Absolutely.
This was really interesting, and debt collection. You hear so many negatives about debt and debt collectors. It's good to put a face to an industry.
Sure.
I think you sound ethical and professional, and I think that's really, really important. So it was good to have a speaker on the ground level. You talked about those debt consolidators. My son bought some debt, like $100 million worth, right?
Okay. Sure.
You were right. It was like 8 cents.
Oh yeah, they bid by tenths of a cent.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to me. And then they resold that again. So we won't get into that. Hey, thank all you guys so much. John, you're up next week. I'll get with you and give you all the details. Appreciate all you guys hanging in there. I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the time.
No problem, sir.